Hey, so in this video I'm going to be showing you a couple of ways that you can customize your BuyBotPro panel to make it ultimately easier for you to use. So BuyBotPro, all in all, is kind of like having a personal assistant, and it's going to be telling you everything and anything you need to know about a product and then some. So here are a few ways that you can really tailor this personal assistant to meet your specific needs. Like if you are, you're using this more or less every day, every other day, you want to be able to really feel that workflow and have it be set in a way that's comfortable for you. So this is where functionalities like the newest one that we've added, which is this little settings cog in the calculator, will come in extra useful. So this is the basic calculator setup. So buy price, sell price. You can choose your fulfillment method from the drop down list. Quantity you can toggle on if it's going to be part of a bundle, therefore it's going to acknowledge the bundle fee you've got in your settings. This is the basic view, but if you happen to be dealing with currency conversion and VAT overrides on the buy price or just overall, then you can of course tap the settings cog and it will bring up these extra options so you have a more advanced calculator. This new little button will remember the way that you've set it, so if you have chosen to be on the basic view, it will remember that every time you come to visit BuyBotPro, until of course you tap this and change it again, so you don't have to keep changing it every single time you enter. So it will remember what you have selected. Now another thing that I wanted to mention is the fact that you can minimize certain sections of BuyBotPro, and again it will remember. But something else you can do as well, if there are particular sections that you just find that you don't really use all that much in an analysis, and therefore it's just taking up space for you between all of the bits that you do factor in, then you can turn that off in the section rearrangement. So it's this little button right here. You'll have all of the sections in BuyBotPro, and you can also choose a default. So there is the default of all, so everything is turned on there. There is a simple layout, so this takes away some of the things that might be considered additional to an analysis and leaves you with just the essential bits. But you can of course make your own layout and add it in here. So let's take a look. Now we have the overview at the top of BuyBotPro, so I would say that's useful. You can see the product and a bit of essential information about said product. That's fine, I'm happy with that. But of course, if you don't need that, you can turn that off. The calculator, you would of course definitely need that. I think that's just a given, otherwise you can't add in your buy price or sell price. The dashboard, again, I wouldn't recommend that is turned off because it's got essential information in there like the IP radar, eligibility and so forth, and we need to know that really. If we go in not knowing that, then we are going in blind. Quick info. Now, if you say have BuyBotPro Ireland turned on, you wouldn't necessarily need the quick info because it has all the same stuff. And on the other hand, if you don't want BuyBotPro Ireland here in the middle, you can turn that off in your settings and leave the quick info up. I'd recommend probably having the quick info somewhere towards the top, but at the end of the day, it does have the buy price and sell price there. So if you have it near the calculator, two places to enter in the buy price, sell price, and it's up to you if you really need that there. It might be that you want your dashboard above that, so just a bit of a quick calculation, eligibility and so forth, a few more details about that. Maybe you'd want to do it that way, but ultimately you could turn that off and leave the island on, or maybe you don't see a need for either of those things and you can therefore turn both off. I would always recommend having your calculator and dashboard towards the top. So that way you can see those important factors, you can enter in that important information right away. It just makes sense. The confidence score, that's BuyBotPro telling you what it thinks of the deal, so it gives you a score based on the analysis and also your own criteria. I would say unless you feel totally confident about everything that you're assessing about an item and you don't really need to see that summed up, then of course you can turn that off. But otherwise, if you like having that second opinion there and seeing a bit about what BuyBotPro has to say about the product, you can have that on. The details section, I would not recommend that you turn that off, because of course this is all of your costs, including the profit you're going to make, ROI, all of the total costs, all those essential numbers. I wouldn't recommend that you do turn that off. BSR and prices, so that's a summary of some basic BSR information about the item, and also some basic pricing about the information, including average pricing. You do get averages in the charts, so you might feel like this isn't something that's crucial to your analysis, or you might prefer to read it on the table rather than in the chart, and that's okay. There's multiple ways to see some of the same bits of information in BuyBotPro. We all work in different ways, so feel free to toggle off or leave on whatever it is that you want to do. But obviously, it's your choice. Discounts. Now, the discount section is something that you can use if you aren't really wanting to manually calculate a discount on an item. So if you were to buy something from say Walmart and you've got a discount on that, and it's not something that you can work out on the website, or you got to open the calculator to do it, you can just tap the discount amount in there and it will apply that to the original buy price that you've entered in. You may, of course, would prefer to work it out on a calculator maybe, and then just enter in that already discounted buy price straight into the calculator. So in which case, if you prefer to do it that way, then the discount section might not be all that relevant to you. But of course, if you would just rather have BuyBotPro do the work, you can leave that discount section on. The BuyBotPro AI analysis, so one of the newer features at this point in time to join BuyBotPro. Obviously, this is AI taking a look at the analysis and bringing you a list of essential points for consideration, good, bad, so everything in the middle. Again, it's up to you, a bit like the confidence score. Would you like BuyBotPro to come up with all of these conclusions for you, or would you rather do that yourself? Or, coming to these conclusions yourself, then checking the AI analysis to see what BuyBotPro has to say about it. That can be quite useful. Maybe it's covered some things that you might have missed, or made a couple of points that are actually quite useful to know. It's up to you. Estimated sales calculator, I would say this is probably one that you wouldn't want to turn off, because it just makes it very clear the historical estimated sales, the present estimated sales for the item, and then it also gives you a prediction. I would say that's quite essential information to go with. We do need to factor in sales and how well it is selling, and that just makes it very clear. Competition analysis, I would say, again, this is an essential for BuyBotPro. Gives you more insight into the other sellers on the listing, including the prices that they're selling for, stock levels, fulfillment types. Again, I would say that this is essential, and I don't think that too many people would want to turn this off. Variations, again, another essential. If you are looking at a product that has, say, 50 variations, you need to be able to tell very quickly, right off the bat, which variations are going to be the most popular. So you're not wasting your time with a variation of that product that just doesn't do well. And of course, trying to figure this out by looking at each product individually is going to take you a long time. So variations is useful where that applies, so I would personally leave that on. Charts, again, sales charts, an essential part of analysis. One of the most, is one of the most crucial parts that needs checking whenever you analyze literally anything. Charts are super, I can't stress how important they are. So I personally would not recommend that these are turned off, but again, choice is yours. You may just prefer reading these aspects in tables and so forth within the BuyBotPro panel. You might prefer doing it that way. Completely your choice. Buy box statistics. I would recommend that you do keep this on, because it will tell you the percentage of time that a seller has had the buy box for, when they last won it, and so then with that information you can tell what your chances are of winning the buy box. So I would say that's pretty important. Export data, it ultimately depends on whether or not you use the Google Sheets functionality. I think the Google Sheets functionality is great to be able to export, say, products that you found that do well into a spreadsheet, or maybe you split it up into 4 different spreadsheets, one for each quarter of the year. So you could send stuff into your Q1 spreadsheet, your Q2 spreadsheet, Q3 and so forth. For products that do well in those particular time periods, you might have a spreadsheet for products that do well all year round, or products to avoid. You know, you can have a spreadsheet for any number of reasons. And so, of course, if you are using Google Sheets, export data does need to be on, otherwise you won't be able to export to a sheet. But of course, if you aren't using that, then you can turn that off. Multi-market analyzer. Now, if you aren't selling in any of the marketplaces and you're not really considering to do so, then it would be safe to turn that off, I would say. But if you are selling in multiple marketplaces, this can be kind of useful because it means that you get a brief insight into how well the item is performing in other marketplaces, and sometimes we may find that it's actually better to sell an item in another marketplace. So therefore, having this there is very useful. But again, if you are only selling in your home marketplace, say you're not planning to expand anytime soon, you can turn that off. Return on investment table. So as we know, this is where we can weigh up sell prices versus ROIs and profits, and see, you know, what we would need to sell the item for in order to achieve like a target ROI. Or if you wanted to experiment with different sell prices and seeing what kind of outcomes that would give in terms of profit and ROI, that can be useful for that. But of course, if we don't feel that that's necessary for our analysis and not something that we want to do, then we can turn that off. ASIN average statistics. So we have a couple of averages in a little table form. So again, it's another way of looking at those averages that we get on the charts. You might prefer the table, you might prefer the charts. So to save yourself some space, you can turn off, you know, whichever one. So yeah, that's completely up to you. IOSS. So this is literally for only for UK sellers selling out into Europe. So it gives you an idea of VAT rates in those countries, how much it's going to cost you and so forth, and obviously that will result in very different profits and ROIs and so forth. So if you are in the UK and you are selling out into Europe, maybe it's via EFN or PAN or whatever, it's quite important to have that on, otherwise you are going into selling in these countries blind and not knowing what that's going to cost you and so forth. So I would recommend having it on in those situations. But if you aren't in the UK, you can turn that off. Or if you are in the UK and you aren't shipping to any other countries, you can probably turn this off. Manual sourcing. So this actually won't affect the manual sourcing accelerator that you would open up on a retailer page. This is just to have the little box that has the button that will give you the tutorial video on how to use the manual sourcing accelerator. So if you feel that you are well acquainted with the manual sourcing accelerator, you likely won't need that tutorial video, and you can always turn it back on if you do need it. So you can probably turn that off. Wholesale. So this is a link to BuyBot Wholesale, and if you are using wholesale sheets and so forth to get them analyzed through BuyBot Wholesale to find which products from that list are going to serve you well, then I would recommend keeping that on, because that is your quick link to the wholesale function. The VA toolbox, if you have virtual assistants, then you'll probably want to leave this on. If you don't have virtual assistants, you can turn that off. Profit Protector Pro, you can turn that on if you are using Profit Protector Pro and you're using that integration. You can turn that on. If you don't have Profit Protector Pro, you can turn that off. Maybe you prefer using the Profit Protector Pro extension over the integration, so in which case you could probably turn that off and just leave it to the extension, or you might prefer it the other way around. So an optional one there. ASIN history, so you can have a look at items that you've analyzed, not just on BuyBotPro, but BuyBotPro WebView and BuyBot Go. It compiles it all together. So if you want to go back and have a look at something that you say were analyzing yesterday, you can look at it there. But if you don't really feel like you're one for going back and looking at past things, then you can turn that off. But don't worry, it will still remember your history. So if you do turn that back on, you will still have some history there. Search. Search and also the Seller Central. These are the quick links, so quick links to eBay, quick links to Google and so forth. So it looks up the item for you on those platforms, so you can see what kind of pricing it's going for on other online marketplaces, and also you can see if maybe you can't get that for a better price online from somewhere, because obviously it will take you right through to Google. You can then scroll through all of the shop results and see what kind of pricing you can get the item for. And the notes section, it again depends on whether or not you use the notes, but yeah, these ones are more optional really. I'd say of all of them, the most essential bits that are crucial for your analysis, I would say would be aspects like the overview, the calculator, the dashboard, to some extent the confidence score, the details definitely, the estimated sales calculator, the competition analysis, variations when they do come up, the charts, the buy box statistics, to some extent export data, because lots of sellers do use Google Sheets, the wholesale function, and also to some extent the AI analysis, just being able to get a really thorough read through on an item, just have that backup so you can just check through all of the points, and you know, it will come to conclusions for you, so therefore you save yourself a load of time. So those are what I would say are essential. Of course, that's just me, but feel free to personalize this in any way you see fit. You can move them around to be in whatever order, you can turn bits off that you don't need, and you can add that as one of your layouts which you can revisit. And you can switch any of the section arrangements that you've got saved in here, or of course you can use one of the default ones that is already in BuyBotPro, so that's the simple and the default. It's completely up to you. Just make sure that you save, and then of course BuyBotPro will be laid out in the way that you have laid it out. That is how you can tailor BuyBotPro to your specific taste. It will make it easier for you to navigate through, easier for you to use if you only have the bits there that are relevant to you when you do an analysis. And I hope that this helped. Thank you for watching.